In this video, we are going to be checking out the new NVR system and PoE system from eufy. Now what we do here is we are going to do a full install of this thing, show you how the install is done, then we're going to put the system through its paces and then give it a thorough review where we point out all the pros and the cons so you can make an informed purchasing decision if this is something that's right for you and your home or business. Now before we get into the install, let's do a really quick briefing of what this is and how it sets it apart from the other cameras that we've had here on the channel and also the other cameras from eufy. This is an NVR system. What that means is this thing has a box that sits in your home somewhere and records all your video on site. Now if you have one of their other systems, you're familiar with the home base, this is a little bit different in that the cameras connect via an Ethernet cable. So these cameras are wired cameras. Now these cameras themselves have some pretty neat features on it. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the video, but one thing that is worth noting is that there is a ton of cameras on this camera. It's not just one camera, it's 3. Now before we get further into the video, I do really value transparency and honesty, so I do need to let you know that eufy did send out the system to us to review. However, they're not telling me what I have to say, which means everything I came across here is fact, it's what I experienced, including everything in the pros and cons at the end. Also, down in the description below, I will have links to some coupon codes that you can use to save a few bucks if you decide this is the camera system for you. But right now, let's get into the install. Now, if you are not interested in the install and you just want to see these cameras in action, I will have a timestamp down below so you can jump ahead. But right now, let's get this thing set up. Okay, so now it's phone time. So we're going to grab our phone. If you haven't already downloaded the eufy app, download the eufy app, set up a free account. It's free. And we're going to hit the little plus button right there. Add device, and now we're going to tell it we want to add the NVR. It's right there on the screen, NVR. Follow the online steps here. We're going to add it to our home. We've got everything hooked up already. So now it's time to scan the QR code. The QR code is located right here on the side of this thing. And now it's going to do its thing. The little beep tells me to push the little button on the back of it, which is located right next to the power jack. And now it's syncing. So now we set up the local account information, and here we're going to put a local password in. I am not going to show you the password I'm using because I don't need people breaking into my security camera system. And then we set up a security question. Same thing, I'm not going to show you what I'm setting up because same reason. So now we have the box hooked up. Now we've got to hook up our cameras, and this is where things kind of get spicy for me because, like I said, my attic is a disaster. Everybody romanticizes getting a fixer-upper. Stop doing that. Anyway, I'm not going to show you me actually routing the wires in my attic because I overheated up there. I live in the desert, my attic's a mess, and there was a lot of cussing. So next we have to hook up the cameras itself, and this is where things are interesting. In every other eufy application that I've done, I've had to set up the home base, and then I have to go back in the app and add a camera. This is the process for adding a camera. Ethernet cable, connect it to that. Ethernet cable, connect it to the camera.
Setup was successful.
And we're connected. That's all there is to it. So now this camera is set up. Now we got to stick them on the outside of the house. So let's go set this thing up in the backyard in my normal camera testing location. Now, if you've seen our camera reviews in the past, you know that this is the spot I test all my cameras in my backyard. That way they're all evenly tested. So we're going to mount this thing in the same spot I've mounted all the other ones. At this point, I am pretty convinced that this is going to be my new permanent system. So this will get moved eventually into a more permanent spot. So now with the mounting bracket installed, we can install the camera. And the camera's got a cool little thing that I haven't seen on other cameras, and this is going to save me and you a lot of headache. And that is the tiny little screws that are used to mount this thing to the cleat itself are captured in place and spring-loaded, which means they're not going to fall out and you'll never find them again. I really like that. Now we have to hook up our network cable. And because this is going to be outside, if you were mounting this right on the side of the house, you may be drilling this and mounting this on the inside. They do come with these little waterproof connectors that you can put in line here. So now our Ethernet cable is in there. We're going to tighten this sucker down so it is nice and watertight. And this part of the install is done. And actually here in the top shelf of my closet, this is where I'm going to be having the box mounted, and you can see there the wires going up into my attic. Now the rest of the wires are going to be routed in there, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit better, but this raised a concern of mine, and that is You can hook this to a TV via an HDMI cable, but I have this thing up in a closet. How the heck am I going to do that? And how am I going to get a mouse to it? So I ordered a HDMI receiver transmitter setup and a Bluetooth mouse. We're going to see if that works. Those are showing up tomorrow. So now that we've got everything hooked up, we can go into the app and we can see the two cameras that we've got hooked up so far showing their thing. So we've got our backyard and our front yard. Now I can actually use the app to aim the cameras and have them aimed specifically where I want them, and then we can tweak everything and run this thing through its paces. So we're going to adjust the front camera and it's actually tracking me. You can see it tracking me right there. But something I just noticed is the latency on this thing, and I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm going to hold my phone up here so you can tell I'm not cheating. Every other camera like this has had at least an 8 to 10 second latency when you're trying to aim these things. This is almost none. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this camera, you rotate the whole body, we're going to point this thing down so it basically points directly at my entryway path right here. And then this one, we're going to go in the app here and aim it across my driveway. Okay, so now we're in the testing portion of the video, and one of the questions everybody has is how long does it take to get a notification to your phone? So I'm hiding in my side yard, I'm going to walk into the detection zone, hit the start button, and see how long it takes to get a notification. Now I do have Wi-Fi turned off on my phone, so this is going to simulate what it would be like if you're away from your house. Now in the backyard, I'm actually going to have to do 2 tests, actually 4, because we're going to do this for both cameras because they're pointed in opposite directions, and then again in the dark. So let's start our first one. This one is on the single wide angle view lens. Okay, so let's start that test. We're going to walk into the detection zone right now, and the countdown begins. 4 seconds, pretty much 4 seconds flat. And that's with the wide angle camera up here, and that would trigger that one to start following me. So right around 4 seconds flat, that is pretty much one of the fastest response times that I've gotten out of any camera on the back of the house. And keep in mind that this is running through my kind of wireless extension access point thingamajig. So now we're going to try the exact same thing coming from my other side yard. So I'm going to be coming around the corner. This is going to be walking in front of the PTZ side of the camera. So let's start that right now. Boop, we're in the detection zone. Whoa, that was fast. So that was 2.85. You can see that there, 2.85 seconds. Extremely quick, quicker than even the other side. I don't know what the difference was. It might have just detected me quicker, but that is, I think, the quickest time I have ever seen coming from a camera in my backyard. Now, the next thing we have to do is see if the performance is the same in the dark. So now we're gonna perform the exact same test, but at night. So I'm gonna walk now, and I've entered the detection zone, and that was 2.49 seconds. And you can see here the lights on my camera have lit up. Now there are actually a couple different night vision modes. This is the one with the light. You can see it's pretty bright. It's illuminating my yard around me pretty well. But after we do the time test, I do want to play around with this thing with the other night vision modes to see if they work as well. So we are now in my other side yard. We're gonna do the exact same thing. You're gonna hear my spa running in the background. I'm sorry about the noise. We're gonna go into the zone now. Started my stopwatch. And right there. So that one was a little bit longer. It's saying 6 seconds. I took a little bit of time to hit the button on there, so we'll call it like 5.5 seconds. Now that light is coming on again because it's followed me around. You can see right there. Now let's turn on some of the different night vision settings and see if that makes any bit of a difference. So now in full night vision mode, let's walk into the detection zone right now. That was 1.69 seconds. So we're sub 2. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but wow. So sub 2 seconds now with that. So now I think it's important just to show you what the different modes look like between the night vision mode and the light mode. So let's take a lap around the pool and I'll show you what that looks like. And here's our first batch of footage. This is me walking around the pool, going around the back side of the pool with the spotlight turned on. And me again, kind of walking the same path with the spotlight turned off using the infrared lights. I did notice near the back of the yard, I do have a shade sail up. It did get a little bit confused and lost track of me for a split second, but then picked me back up. So now we're up in the front of the house, and I want to kind of do the same thing up front using the night vision. Night vision is what's on right now. wave hello night vision, but I want to try some things up here because I can get a little further away from the camera, and I also have a license plate, and a lot of people want to know how well these things can read license plates. So let's give that a go. And license plates seem to be the Achilles heel of almost every security camera that I've played with at night. During the day, they're fine, but at night, the same thing happens, and that is the light that the camera uses to light up the subject that it's recording completely overexposes the license plate, and you can't read anything. And it looks like the same applies when it's in night vision mode as well. Another important thing that everyone wants to know about is what is the sound quality of the microphones on these cameras? And this is the sound quality of the microphones on these cameras. Now the other thing is, what does this camera sound like when you're talking through the camera through the app? So let's check that out.
And this is what the audio sounds like coming out of the camera with me talking through the app on my phone.
Now something that's come in handy for me is cross-camera tracking. And what that is I've got a camera now by my front door over there, and then I've got one, the one I've been showing footage of, up over my driveway. So if somebody walks up my driveway, they will go out of range as they walk into this walkway that I'm standing now. The camera won't be able to see them. That camera will then start recording, and in cross-camera tracking, it knows that it's the same event, and it'll stitch those together into essentially one clip so you can see it all the way through. Okay, so it's been a little bit of time since we first installed those cameras, and if you notice anything different about me, I'm getting older. I went to the eye doctor and finally got to wear not just readers, but regular glasses as well. So here I am. My daughter says this makes me look a little bit more intelligent, which isn't saying much. She said that too. Anyway, so we showed you kind of the in the field testing, all those little things, but now I kind of want to go over the nitty gritty and show you the little details of this camera system. So the first thing let's talk about is the DVR system. Now the DVR system on board as it came has a 2 gig hard drive, which is enough to handle all these cameras, and it's enough to get recordings for individual events. However, if you do 24/7 recording, it will fill up pretty quick. You do have the ability to crack that case open and put a larger hard drive in it, but you can also do a USB hard drive. There's USB ports and USB-C ports in the back, and I have tried putting one of my USB drives on it, and it does in fact work and expand the storage. Now, if you noticed on the back of the thing, it has 8 ports, which means you can support up to 8 cameras. However, these cameras kind of act like 2 cameras. It's 8 channels, so you can actually do 16 cameras if you count this camera look in one direction and this camera look in the other direction as 2 cameras. Now, the other thing that NVR has in it is AI. And by AI, I mean it's not spooky AI Terminator stuff. What it does is it'll filter out things, so you're not just getting motion alerts. Now, something that's come in handy for me is cross-camera tracking. And what that is I've got a camera now by my front door over there, and then I've got one, the one I've been showing footage of, up over my driveway. So if somebody walks up my driveway, they will go out of range as they walk into this walkway that I'm standing now. The camera won't be able to see them. That camera will then start recording, and in cross-camera tracking, it knows that it's the same event, and it'll stitch those together into essentially one clip so you can see it all the way through. Now, you saw me mention earlier, I was curious if using a wireless mouse and a wireless HDMI transmitter would work, and it totally will, and I'm really excited about this because I didn't want to run HDMI cables. So I plugged one into the back of the unit, and I've got a monitor in my office that shows the cameras I have set up right now. I also have a wireless mouse, which means I didn't have to run a mouse in there. I can have the mouse out of the closet and on the counter with my monitor. I'll have a link for that thing down below. Now let's talk about the cameras specifically. These are the PTZ cameras, pan, tilt, zoom cameras. They also have bullet cameras, which is basically a single camera pointed one direction that you can also use. Those aren't the ones that I'm using on my house. So right now, as I kind of showed earlier, I've set up one in my front yard and my backyard. And because I like these, I think I'm going to just commit to the system now and set them all up. But what's really cool about these cameras is, like we kind of showed before, and I mentioned before, there are several lenses. And what these several lenses do is it means you can basically use this camera as 2 cameras because you can point them in opposite directions. You turn this top one is a stationary camera, so you can turn that in the direction that you want it. I'll show you here how this is set up in my backyard. So this one is pointed in one direction in my backyard towards my pool, and I have the other lens pointed the other way. So this is the default position for the other lens, pointed towards the other half of my yard. This top camera is a 4K camera, which means you get good cropping on this one. These 2 bottom ones are 2Ks, but they're at different focal lengths, meaning they can zoom. So the top camera will cover an area, the bottom camera will cover another area. Now, if the top camera picks up something coming from the other direction, this bottom one will spin around and you'll actually get several different video clips of the same thing. The top one is a stationary camera, isn't going to zoom, and it'll keep an eye on the whole scene. The bottom cameras will zoom in on what it's looking at depending upon whether there's one or more subjects. It's pretty smart. The other thing that I was pretty impressed with was how far out these cameras will detect motion. Now, on the front of my house to the end of my driveway is not that far. You're talking about 50, 60 feet from one corner to the other. It had zero problems with that. But playing around with it, and I don't have it set up this way all the time because I don't want to be watching my neighbors, this thing made it diagonal across the street, and that is about 150 feet away. And this thing was readily picking up stuff 150 feet away. So now let's jump into the app so I can show you some of the features and how this thing works in the app. So we'll pop the screen up on over here. I'm gonna hop on my phone. So when you load it up, it's gonna show each camera, and it'll show each camera as 2 screens. Now, when you hop into the camera and you click on it, it shows you a live feed from both cameras. In some of the other cameras I've seen, it doesn't show a live feed in both, just in one. So this is very, very neat. So right now you can see this is my backyard. This is live, and it's showing the left and the right, just like we had talked about before. Now, if you want to live record what's going on, you can hit live record. You can also do screenshots, talk through like we demonstrated before, and you can jump into the different PTZ settings, things like that. Now, if you want to view stuff, you can hit that playback button, and we're going to select which camera we want to do the playback from. So let's do the movable camera. So what's neat here is you can scroll back through time, and you can see here I'm scrolling back, and there is a video of me coming back from maintaining my pool. And you can just scroll back through time. If you want to go further back in time, you can come up to the calendar. There I am putting acid in my pool. You can go back through the calendar and you can select a previous day. We'll go back to like the 23rd and confirm, and now it'll jump to that previous day, and I can go back through all my clips there. If you want to actually get into the settings of each camera, you go down to the lower 3 dots, pop those open, and this is where you can tweak all those settings we were talking about before. So the pan tilt settings, you set where you want it to be permanently aimed. You can set it up so it goes into sentry mode and it goes back and forth. There's a lot of settings you can play with. Most notably is the motion detection settings. So this one you can set up activity zones. So if you don't want to get detections from the street or across the street, you can set up an activity zone and it won't give you those alerts. This is also where you can set up your detection responses, and you can see all the different things that you can have it tell you about. I have it set up so it doesn't tell me about all their motion, because that sometimes will give you alerts when the trees move and whatnot. But if you have these, say, in a garage where you're not going to have wind, you might want to set that up. So that's kind of up to you. I'm not going to go through all the settings because there's a ton here, but the other notable thing is the video settings, and this is where you're going to set up your record quality, and that's going to determine how much hard drive space you use. You're also going to want to set up the recording time. You can go all the time, no recording, or schedule. And if you go no recording, then it's just going to record the clips where it senses motion, and that's going to save you a ton of hard drive space. Chances are pretty good I'm just going to switch to that because there's no point in me recording nothing. But maybe for your case, there is a point. So that's kind of a quick and dirty run through of the app. If you have specific questions on the app, leave them down below. I'm always happy to answer questions in the comment section. So now let's kind of delve into the pros and cons of this camera, because there are pros, but as with everything, there are cons, or at least things to consider before you jump into purchasing this particular system. First, we'll do the pros. So first, I want to get out of the way, this is right now the best eufy system I have used as far as video quality, detection speed, pan tilt, everything along those lines. This is the best system I've used. The detection speeds, as you saw in this video, were faster than anything else I've used. A lot of other cameras I've had, when it comes to panning, the panning is not smooth. It's very jerky. Somebody walks by and it kind of jerks across the screen. This one is a very smooth, fluid pan, and you can see on the videos that I showed of me kind of walking around my backyard that it not just pans, but it very smoothly zooms in. The build quality of the cameras, I'm pretty impressed with. These are not metal cameras. Some cameras you will get are metal. These are plastic cameras, but it is at least a very stout plastic. It's not thin and flimsy. And the attention to detail on things like those captured screws I talked about. This is also the first camera system I have had in a long time where I can just have constant live view. I'm looking at it right over there. I can have constant live view running all the time. With that, and I know I've talked about it before in the video, I love that I can use HDMI transmitter receivers and have that image all over the house. And you can get ones that can transmit out to a bunch. So you can put a receiver on every single TV in the house, and anywhere you are, if you hear something, you can just change your input on the TV and seal your cameras. So we've talked about all the pros, and we showed you the performance of these cameras. Now we got to talk about the cons. And keep in mind that sometimes a con is something is bad for one person and not for another. So the first major con is the wires. Now, a lot of people would say this is a pro because it means these cameras aren't solar powered, they're not battery powered, they're powered from the base station, which is true. The con is you have to get the wire to where you need it to go. So before you go and get a camera system that you're gonna have to wire in, kind of crawl around and figure out if you can do it so you don't get one of these things home and realize you can't. Now the wires that this thing did come with are very long. I didn't actually have to get any longer wires for the 2 cameras I put in, but the 2 additional cameras I put in, the wires that came with this thing are not long enough. The wires are, I believe, about 70 feet. 60 or 70 feet. Put the number right here. So I am going to have to make some of my own wires to get a little bit longer, and that is something it is not hard to do. And if that's something you're having to do, I'll leave a link for those kits down below. You just get the wires and a crimper. You can make your own. If you're planning on using this camera outside and something you are really needing to do is get license plates, like we showed earlier in the video, it is an issue, and this has been an issue with almost every camera I have played around with, and that's because, like we talked about earlier, the IR LEDs or the lights will hit that license plate, and those license plates are designed to be reflective, so they blind the camera. And finally, this is not a cheap system. Now, when you get this, I got it with 4 cameras and the base station, and it is expandable with more cameras, but this system is more expensive than if you've got a 3 or 4 camera system with a home base 3. But I would argue you're getting a better security camera system. So it really comes down to use case and what makes the most sense for how you are planning on using the camera system. So I know we've covered a lot in this video, and I also know there's probably stuff that I've missed. So if you have particular questions about this camera system or you're looking for recommendations, please leave a comment down below. I'm always in the comment section answering questions. Now, if you enjoy this kind of content and honest reviews where we show you the ins and outs of how everything works, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help out the channel, and I really would appreciate the support. Give this video a great big thumbs up, do all that YouTube-y stuff that we always ask for, and of course, thanks for watching.